up, everybody, and welcome back to the Survivor Now podcast. My name is Randy Bruce Eagleman, and today I am joined with Ollie and Josh for what could be considered our biggest and most challenging podcast yet, as we are set to rank all 47 U.S. Survivor seasons. And yes, there is going to be some discussions brought up. I mean, you guys can join our Ancient Voices live chat as the episode airs, or if you're watching this late, let us know in the comments down below what you agree with, what you disagree with. We definitely want to hear from you guys as we go through this mega 47 seasons of this show, which is just crazy. This show started in 2000, was it? Or 2000. Yep. Absolutely insane. So we've got happy 2025 to everyone. We've got literally 25 years of this show, which is absolutely incredible. Let me just tell you guys how this is going to work before we get into ranking everything. Basically, we're going to break this up. We're not going to do all 47 seasons in one episode. So this week, we are going to get started with the first 10 seasons of Survivor. And each week we will update our list, our official rankings of how we think these seasons line up against one another. This is an official ranking. After we're done, after we've done all 4 weeks of this podcast, you can go to our website and see how we have all the rankings. There will be discussions. There could be changes along the way. Let's say the episode ends and Josh and Ollie text me and say, hey, I think we got to switch these seasons around. The list is not finalized until that final episode in week 4, and we say that's it. That's the list. We're done. So we're going to take our time. We're going to try to get this list as perfect as we can. Please be friendly. It is our opinions. There's only 3 of us. If you guys disagree, like I said, let us know in the comments, and we'll come back next week and we'll circle back around to it and see if we want to make some changes. So before we get started, Josh, Ollie, gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Doing well. Had a lovely New Year, had a lovely Christmas, and I'm ready to get back into the Survivor mood. I'm ready.
It's that time.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, great Christmas and New Year's, great time with family and friends, and nice to be back more in a normal routine now, and cannot wait for this project in particular. Like, I love off-season Survivor stuff. I love ranking things. I love talking about like all the seasons and everything, in the show's like whole history. I have a lot of opinions on this stuff, and when I first joined this team, I'm like, this is the sort of thing that I was super excited about talking about. So
it's gonna be like a nice rites of passage going back, like looking back at all these incredible seasons, not so incredible seasons. We'll get to there, and obviously it was the season of like love and all that, whether that's your partner or your family or whatever. And now we're gonna really start hating each other when we disagree on these seasons. So, all right, without further ado, let's get into this. I got to change the layout because we got something interesting for you guys today. So today we're talking about those first 10 seasons, Survivor, the beginning years. And gentlemen, quick comments on what you take away from these 10 seasons as a whole. Like, obviously there's some historic moments. This is when Survivor was finding its footing. I always tell people if they're getting into Survivor, like, I don't know if starting with season 1 is the best unless you're actually going to be committed to it, because those early seasons, Jeff he's not talking during the challenges and stuff. It can be kind of slow. The editing's getting their footing. So what do you guys take away from these, as I call it, the beginning years of Survivor?
So I wasn't there for this as they were live. I started watching around like Guatemala, Panama. So you're at the beginning of next week. That's when I joined the fandom. So all of this I watched after the fact. But I have a huge affinity for this era of Survivor because I think the format was a lot more pure and like the way the game's intended to be. And I think, there's fun twists that have been thrown in along the way, but just you vote people out until you can't do that anymore, and then the jury decides between 2 people. Like, that is as good as it gets in Survivor. And then they diverted from that. So I love this. I love the storytelling. I love the pace and the casting. Yeah, there's a lot that's really, really good here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the beginnings of Survivor. It's where we all kind of figured things out with it. And I mean, we all know that some of these seasons, like, there's not as much maybe strategy, but these beginning seasons have their own little unique things about them, which made Survivor start the momentum that it did. So we're always going to give them their flowers. I think Mark just put in the chat, like, yes, Borneo's maybe the risky one to start off with, but that's not to say it's not a bad season. There are some gems in the first 10 seasons. Definitely.
There's some gems, and I think it is Survivor finding its footing. Like, we didn't even mention, there's no immunity idols in these like first 10 seasons. Yeah. It is very straight, let the players play gameplay, not a lot of twists. I mean, what was the first twist? We'll get into it, but the first twist was like the tribe swap, was it not? Of like,
we're the first really big one,
yeah. So I mean, it's very straightforward. This is the game that we're presenting to you. Let me show some of these comments. Big Show Ganell, what up, man? I can't believe I saw Josh at Bryson win in Chicago and didn't realize it was him.
Say hi next time.
Can always meet him next time. Mark, agree, telling new fans to start with Borneo is risky, especially if they're used to the fast pace or new. Yeah, I never recommend Borneo as like the first season. But let's get straight into it. I mean, talking about, I got to find the right page here. We got to get in the Borneo. We're going to take you to all these exotic locations here. And we're in Borneo talking about the inaugural season where obviously Richard Hatch defeated Kelly Wigglesworth in a 4-3 showdown. Look, we've already mentioned how Borneo is not one that I recommend starting with. It is the bare minimum of Survivor, but there are some, kind of funny moments in this. I go back to Richard kind of connecting with, oh my gosh, who was it? Rudy. Yeah, it was Richard and Rudy kind of making this like fun little connection that you wouldn't expect. Josh, what stuck out to you in season 1 of Survivor? What started it all?
Okay, so like I said, got into the fandom like 2005, 2006, and Borneo was available on DVD. So we rented it on Netflix and watched it all, at my parents' house when I was like 14 or whatever, and had not watched Borneo since then. And I started a couple months ago, kind of fell off, but then because of this project, I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this. And I actually just finished the finale like 45 minutes ago.
Whoa,
so this is super fresh for me.
That's amazing.
I've been sending some of my friends updates as I've been watching, but I think it was really good. Like I get why. I mean, aside from the fact that the premise of this whole show is super interesting. I get why this show like blew up and 50 million people watched the finale. Like, it is really compelling to watch people who have no premise of like how this game is supposed to work or have no idea what the show is going to become, still come in and like have this thing where they form society and have bonds with their whole team. And then they merge and they're like, oh, wait, how is this supposed to go? Like, do we vote in alliances? Is that moral? Is that okay? And just like, I don't know, grappling with like the game and the humanity and the money. Yeah. It's just really, really compelling stuff. And there's a lot of great human moments along the way. And some fun characters. Like, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this coming back.
I mean, how can you not enjoy that final tribal council speech? Which
man,
incredible! What was it like?
I've seen the rat. Yeah, the snakes and rats. Like, I've seen that one. I've seen the replays of that many times. But after watching the whole season, watching that like that was the last jury speech of final tribal council. She said, mother it should end as Mother Nature intended to be, for the snake to eat the rat. I'm just like, oh my gosh, that was so good.
And it's the fact that gets mentioned.
Yeah.
I was laughing as I took a breath in, and it got that, like, you know what I'm talking about when you're choking on air? I'm going to be dying for a second. Ollie, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, just that moment as well, it is referenced like 20, like however many years on. Like, I feel like we even heard it in either 46 or 47. But it's not so like there were so many cool moments within this season. I mean, I think back to Sonia and Helen.
Rest in
peace.
Yes.
I also think about Greg When I think of Borneo, I think of Greg because I think he was such a fun character, and even like his vote off was funny.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, like the strategy we know was kind of hit or miss. There was what has now become famous as the pagoning. So again, that's why I'm kind of like with Borneo, whether you think it's something that should be shown first to a new time viewer, there's going to be references that they see throughout where it's like they're going to have to watch Borneo because at the end of the day, it is the birth.
Yeah.
It's the birth of Survivor. So you always give it its flowers for me.
And I mean, that's what's impressive about Borneo, right? You're creating the show that no one's ever seen. How many shows do we see premiere and they die instantly, or they only go like 2 seasons or something? You have to do something special to get people hooked. There's iconic moments. I mean, people loved Survivor. Like once this aired, people were hooked immediately. And it just became this like phenomenon that continues to be a powerhouse in reality television today. In my opinion, the best, show still out there in terms of reality television.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So,
oh god, yeah.
This is how we're doing this. You guys are going to literally watch us make these rankings live. Just like that. Borneo is the first season that we talk about. So Borneo automatically goes number 1. So it's not going to stay first, but you're going to get to see us adjust it as we go on.
You never know. Can I just point out Anthony White's comment in the thing? Because I feel like it kind of encapsulates Borneo. It's so different from even the seasons that came after it. There will truly never be another Borneo, which I think is very, very true.
Okay.
They were making it up as they went.
Yeah.
The production was obviously, but like the cast was is the main point. Like they had no premise, no framework for how that was supposed to go, but then they made it work, and we have this show 25 years later because of them.
Last thing I want to ask about Borneo before we move on here: are we satisfied with the first ever winner of Survivor?
Yeah,
at the time, in terms of
at
like
the time,
yeah.
I think there's definitely some questionable things that he's done
afterwards, but that's
but I think in that era, like in that season, for what it was, like he absolutely needed to win.
Yeah, that was not a trap question. I just wanted to say, at the time, I was not testing you guys.
Randy's trying to get us canceled out here
immediately. All right, so next up, we are going to take a trip to the Australian Outback to talk about Survivor, the Australian Outback, where we saw Tina Wesson beat Colby, and I was a little late in getting to my thing. In a 4-3 vote again, another close vote. Yeah. Obviously, Colby was very happy for Tina to win. And I tell you guys, this was the season that really started my Survivor fandom. The first season I ever watched was South Pacific, but I went back to watch an older season, and Australian Outback was the one that was available for me because I found it on a DVD. And so I watched this season 2. So I'm like, oh, this is where the show started. And I kind of went on from watching there and then went back and watched Borneo later down the road. I really like the Australian Outback. I felt like there was some iconic moments. This is not a great moment, and it's also involving not a great person, but we had the first ever medical emergency on Survivor when Scoopin fell in the fire and burned his hands. Like, I couldn't imagine watching this when it first came out. You just saw the first season and you were like, wow, what a great and fun show. And I'm sure you had people who were like, oh, I bet it's not that real or whatever. And then the second season, you watch this guy literally have his skin melted off, and they show it. They literally show you him sitting there with his skin hanging off. And just the wake up call that people had to have when that happened to kind of be like, wow, they are actually out there, holy cow. And then you had the flooding situation. I felt like there was a lot of drama this season. I really enjoyed the relationship as well between Roger and Elizabeth, that father and daughter sort of relationship that they had. So this season, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say, because this one is always going to be near and dear to my heart, and the one that started it all for me.
I enjoy Australian Outback. I think what I like about it is the different dynamics with people, and you kind of can always relate it back to pairings. Because I mean, Alicia and Kimmy, chicken game. But even Colby and Jerry, there was there is always like little duos this season, which I appreciated. Again, I'm going to bring up Jerry Manthey because Queen, she is one of my faves. And I liked that. I think what I liked about this season, when you compare it to Borneo, is there was a little bit more fluidity. Not much, but there was a bit more kind of strategic gameplay in the sense of it's not just tribe v tribe.
Yeah, I do think the gameplay was definitely, the strategy was more interesting for sure, because you have like Tina and Keith flipping Colby to their side pre-merge and then getting Mitchell out on the past votes tiebreaker, which was really interesting. And then the past votes tiebreaker in general, and they only did it for Outback and Africa, but it was really interesting to see how the players like maneuvered around that. And that was like, you know, a big deal with like Ogakor making the comeback against Kucha, like tying it up 5-5 and then winning out at the merge. And then also how they they turned on their own, because you know, they could have pagonged Kucha, but they turned on Jerry and they turned on Amber before, like while there were still other Kucha members in the game. So I will say it was more strategically interesting. And again, like 8 of these people have come back to play again. So clearly a really stacked cast. Yeah, like tons of icons, and even the ones who haven't, like Elizabeth and Roger. And,
even Deb. Deb,
Mad Dog, like even the people who haven't come to play again are like, you know, they're like iconic cast for sure.
Yes.
Kimmy's on this season too.
Yeah. No, love Kimmy. Yeah.
Isn't that the season where she couldn't? They had an eating challenge. Is this that season?
Yeah, no, I think she.
Or is that the other one?
I think she wasn't going to, but then she did.
Yeah.
No, it was this one for sure.
Yeah.
But I loved the pass votes tiebreaker method. I thought it was great. Yeah. I will say about this season though is that once Jerry gets voted out, it does kind of like fall pretty flat and get pretty stale, because the driving narrative around that time is like, oh, who's like good and who's deserving, which is, you know, that's how Tina and Colby ran the game. It was successful for them, whatever. It just like wasn't really that fun or interesting to watch in the back half. Like once Jerry goes, there's not really any tension. Like when the camp floods and they have to go get the rice, that was really interesting and compelling, but there wasn't really. It was kind of a drag the last 4 or 5 episodes. So I think.
Oh, sorry, not to cut you off. I was just going to say we got the first female winner as well with Tina, which I felt like was a satisfying conclusion to how this season ended. Personally, like do you guys like how the outcome kind of played out here with Tina beating Colby in another very close vote, like a 4-3 vote?
Yeah, I mean, just like how Richard needed to win season 1, I think Tina winning season 2 showed like that there can be 2 very different types of winners, 2 different types of playing the game. Yeah. So I'm not like a huge fan of like Tina or Colby. I appreciate them both for like their contributions. I'm not like a stan of either one of them. Yeah. But I think that it was really great that you won.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I love that there's 3 of us, because there can be a tiebreaker, and this is the only time that it's a 50-50. Do we put it in front of Borneo or do we put it behind Borneo? Obviously, people are going to be like, Borneo started it all. That should carry something. The fact that it does. And I'm hearing you out. I personally, and this, we all knew I was going to say this because this is this is near and dear to my heart. I think this is better than Borneo. I think both are a great way to start Survivor as a whole. But if I had to go back and choose which one I'd rather watch, I would love to go back and watch this again. I've already seen this season like 3 times, and it's the only season that I've watched 3 times.
You're not the only one.
I would put, I think before rewatching Borneo, I probably would have put Outback ahead, but I just really think that Borneo is like really compelling down the stretch. And I love the post-merge of Borneo in particular was like really, really good.
I don't want to tie break.
Oh man, you should have gone first then. I'm always happy to tie break.
If you don't agree with Josh, he's going to be like, whoever you don't agree with is done.
There are hills I will die on. Don't get me wrong. This is not one of them. But this, I would put Borneo over Outback, because I do think it is, again, it's the one that started it all. And I think it's like a lot more raw, compelling moments like down the stretch when Outback kind of like peaks earlier and is kind of dragged down the stretch. So I think that gives Borneo the edge for me.
Before Ollie chimes in, I can also be convinced. I'm not going to die on this hill.
Yeah.
Like I can see the argument with Borneo going before Australian Outback, because while the sequel is a fantastic sequel, a lot of people argue you can't beat the original that started it all. So I can see that argument as well.
I will also add that it's really hard for me to rank Borneo anywhere, just because it is so like Anthony in the comments.
Yeah.
Like it's just like such a unique animal because it was the first one and there was no precedent or anything. Like it's really impossible. Not impossible. It's really difficult to rank in comparison to other seasons. So I want to give that caveat too.
I'd put it behind Borneo.
Okay, so Borneo and then Australian Outback. I can live with that. I can live with that. All right, next up, I'll update the list here in a second after I cue us on our next trip to Africa for Survivor Africa, the third season, where we see Ethan beat the late and great Kim Johnson in a 5-2 finale. Kim, I believe, passed away this year, so very,
Last year,
was it last year? Was it?
2024. Yeah.
Time flies that fast. Well, okay. Yeah, okay. We knew what I was saying.
That took you 2 to 3 business days to get. Bloody hell, man.
That took me a minute.
You're still living in 2024.
Survivor Africa is another season that I've watched multiple times. I haven't watched every season multiple times, but I watched Australian Outback and then watched Africa almost immediately after. And then I've gone back and watched it again, and I watched it another time. I think there's some fun moments in Africa. They do have the challenge that I absolutely hate, which is that giant boulder challenge. Where
that wiped out Kelly Goldsmith. Yeah.
It is an injury waiting to happen. There was, she was. There was some great connections in this one. Again, we had that iconic reward where we saw Frank. I combined them. Frank and Brandon went on a movie night. What was the movie they watched again? Does anybody remember?
I don't know.
I can't remember, but yeah, I was going to bring that up because I bloody loved that.
I mean, take it away, Ollie. Like that moment
it
is
was
one that sticks out to me.
Yeah, because obviously I stan Brandon more than Frank. But yeah, it was just so funny. But it was kind of going back to Josh's point in terms of Borneo. It was a really funny human moment. Like there was just these human moments. I mean, Anthony's just said in the chat as well that drinking.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Do you remember the challenge too? I really enjoyed this challenge. And I told you guys also, I've done some research on my memory and I can remember moments better than certain players in their game. But do you guys remember the moment where they have a plane flying over for like supplies and they have to do like an SOS?
Yeah.
And was it Big Tom had like a feather sticking out of his butt and he's out there like waving like this? And I see it's those moments that make me miss old Survivor, because some people thought those challenges were stupid. I really enjoyed those types of challenges where it's like you've got a certain amount of time to build an SOS or whatever. Obviously the instance where they're at camp and they hear a lion in the middle. Was it a lion or an elephant?
It was a lion.
They heard a lion in the middle of the night. I'm very satisfied with Ethan as a winner. He had a reward where he went and delivered like toys to an African tribe, I believe it was, or no,
I think
just
so,
like a camp.
Yeah.
But it was
hacky sack with them. Yeah,
I like Africa is a place that if they said, "Hey, we're gonna leave Fiji and go back and touch base on some of these places, give us like 3 places you'd want us to go back to," I would personally choose Africa. I think it's one of them because I think it created like this amazing environment for the show. Josh, what do we think about Africa? How big, how high are you on it? How low?
I love Africa. I think that the pre-merge is one of the best ever.
Yeah.
Like ever. It was so good. Like carried by Sambaru in particular. Pre-swap, like the elders versus the mall rats was like such a fun like dichotomy within that tribe. And then, you know, the tie between Lindsay and Carl, and then the, you know, just the sheer audacity of Silas being like, hey, you know, keep your votes on Lindsay. And then the elders are like, no, F you, man. Like we're voting for you. And then the swap and how, you know, the rise and fall of Silas and Lindsay being like such
I was going to bring up
of
Silas.
nature. I loved her. And I think that she had such a great arc too. And I love Kelly Goldsmith as well. Like,
yes.
I think she had it all. She, I think, was such an interesting player and narrator, and she was the first one to clock that Lex is kind of full of it and really like patronizing and annoying in some ways. So I think that some of her reads on him were incredible.
Oh god, one of the best.
It was so good. She it was so good. The only thing, again, I know Ollie, you mentioned that you like Brandon, but him voting Kelly out, I could go on and on about that. I think that took so much of the wind out of the sails of the season. It would have been so incredible to see that coup against Lex succeed. And because it didn't, and the Baran people got the majority, like, I love Ethan and, Kim J, I agree, unsung legend. And Lex and Tom were there too. And I think that going to the end was definitely a lot more boring and like less interesting than it would have been if like Sambaru had somehow gained the majority there, because they were just way too much of a hot mess for that to be for him to just like pick off the others. So I think that was a really, really tragic swing of events with Kelly going home at the final 9 there. And as a result, again, like Outback, the last like 4 or 5 episodes were kind of because of that.
Fair. Are we saying that is more so because you really stand Kelly Goldsmith?
I think partially.
Okay.
But I do think that like Kelly plus, Brandon, Kim P, Frank, and T-Bird, if they get the majority there, there's no way they pick off all the Baran people. Because like again, Brandon and Frank like hated each other, and then like Teresa and Kim P are more like the peacemaker types. But I think it just would have been so much more interesting to see that play out. And then the end we got with the Baran people like essentially pagonging Sambaru, it was not as fun for me.
I can understand that. I think my counterpoint to it was I still feel like we had some really good character dynamics, because it's like obviously you had the big personality in Lex.
I was going to say, we haven't even brought up Lex.
Love him or Lex was a character. And like there was Big Tom, you had again Ethan. Like, I'm so glad you brought up my love Kim Powers. Love her as well. That's what I kind of remember from this season. I can remember the players, and I'm more so shocked we haven't seen more of those people return.
Me too.
Like I blame the viewers for this. We had the chance to have T-Bird back. And anyone, I will blame you. No, because there are other people I was happy with when it came back to second chances, but I was rooting for T-Bird. I digress. Yeah, I think overall I remember the characters. I mean, we did have the first ever tribe swap this season, I believe. So that for me is kind of like where I'm like, I bring it up there. For me personally, out of the 3 so far, this is probably out of the 3, the season I'd have at the top. So that's
I think I would also have it at the top, because even though Australian Outback is near and dear to my heart, I do think Africa is a better season all around. And I think the gameplay is a little better personally in Africa than I thought in Australian Outback. So I agree with Ollie. I think this should go number 1. Josh, do we have any pushback?
I was debating whether or not I would put Borneo over this or not, but I do think because this, similar to Outback, like final 7 to the end is pretty rough. But I will say, like, the episode 3 through the final 8 is just so good. Like top tier Survivor content, like way higher highs than Borneo or Outback had. So yeah, I'm definitely okay with this being number 1.
All right, I'll update the list here, but Africa goes to the top of the leaderboard at number 1. Next up, it is a season that I think gets a lot of hate. Not a lot of hate, but it's just like people tend to forget it like really easily, and that is Marquesas, where I mean, if you missed our podcast we did on female winners, go back and check that out. It's available now on YouTube. We were very high on Vesepia. She beats, is it Neely? I'm gonna mess it up. Nalia, I messed it up again. I messed it up then. I messed it up here. She beats her 4-3 at the final tribal council. Gentlemen, are we high on Marquesas or low? Because like I personally don't have an issue with Marquesas. I will say it does seem to leave my mind. I really enjoyed Pascal this season. Is someone like, once again, you can tell I love this kind of father and daughter like relationship with Pascal and Nalia. And then Kathy was enjoyable at times. Sean, everyone loved Sean Rector from this season. John Carroll was on this season. This is the season that gave us Boston Rob. I mean, there was some good players on this season. There's some icons on this on like this season of Castaways, but we haven't seen a lot of people return from this season. Ollie, you look like you're dying to talk about Marquesas. Go ahead, take it away. What are we thinking?
I feel like I am like on the lone island in the sense of like I remember Marquesas. Like when people are like it's forgettable, I'm like, you have a tiny brain then, because I love Marquesas.
Ollie just told me I have a tiny brain. You know what? I love him too much to be mad about it.
I'm honest.
And I do. He's not wrong.
I remember Marquesas. I liked Marquesas. Again, it has one of my favorite winners for Sepia. That's probably the biasy there as well. But I also think there was a lot of unique gameplay this season that I think gets very underrated and very like pushed to the side. And it's like, we saw a lot of good dynamics this season. Like Gabriel going during the swap when it was like, he was in a clear majority, but they decided to do something different. The iconic Final 9 switcheroo. I want to just talk about pre-merge a little bit and talk about my love Gina Cruz. Love Gina. Like, but even like the pre-merge, like you have a really strong pre-merge in the sense of like you have this battle for like domination between like Rob and
Hunter.
Thank you. My brain went there and I was like, no, I'm right in Hunter. Like you see them two going at it, and then it's like you see. I'm going to say this now. I didn't mind like John Carroll and stuff. Like obviously they were arrogant as fuck, but I didn't like, I was like, I enjoyed that dynamic because it was such a fall from grace. And we had the first ever rock draw.
Oh, like, I forgot about that.
This is why I sit there and I'm like, but this is why I'm like there and people are like, oh, it's really forgettable. I'm like, the first rock draw ever. Like, educate yourself.
And the first, like, counter-alliance, overthrowing the majority, like, the genesis of Boston Rob, who's, like, you know, every casual fan ever is like, oh, yeah, Survivor, Boston Rob. Like, this is his origin story. I love Marquesas. I, again, was not there for it, so I don't have, like, the nostalgia.
You don't have a tiny brain like me.
No. I remember when I first joined the fandom, I felt, you know, there's people who had been watching from the beginning and they were kind of like a little bit like elitist snobby, like, oh, you know, those first like 3-4 seasons, like, you know, you had to have been there. And like, I wasn't there, but I still recognize how amazing Marquesas was. You know, Ollie loves, you know, pre-merge legend Gina Cruz. I love pre-merge legend Sarah Jones. She was just like
the
so
scene.
Funny. Yeah, the first scene she comes in and Sean calls her Cleopatra, and she's just like such a nice, chill person. But every time anybody talks about her, they're just like crapping on her endlessly. It's just so it's so rough. But man, I loved her journey.
Can I just say, the funny part is, if anyone did that now in new season, like in new era, the fans would be like, icon. That's mother.
Yeah,
like,
for real. Sarah Jones now, she would have like so many like, you know, Twitter like stands and like all the, you know, the edits on, you know, that person on TikTok. Like, she was great. And I think, like you said, all the dynamics, the pre-merge A+, like all the way through. And I think the rise and fall of John Carroll from like the swap and how he's like the bad guy for taking out Gabe, who is just so innocent and pure.
I loved Gabe.
And then everything leading up to his downfall with Boston Rob being the one who's kind of like, you know, pointing out the writing on the wall and like saying all that for that to finally happen. And the exclamation point at the end of Sean being like, checkmate, bro. You thought you had me. You never go to Vegas, bet on black. Like that's like cinema, like peak cinema right there. It's so good. You go ahead.
Also, let's not forget Kathy peed on John Carroll because he got stung by a jellyfish.
Yes. Oh my God. Another iconic moment.
You get those iconic moments from this. Okay, this is where I was at, and I feel like I can feel where the tide is going here. I was going to have it the bottom of the 4, but it sounds like you guys are so high on it. It can't be below Australian Outback.
God fuck no.
Oh, I'd put Marquesas number 1.
Yeah.
Over Africa?
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I think in the end, the final 5, I mean, again, the 8-7-6 when they're picking off the rest of the row 2s was a little lackluster, but I do think that the final 5 and the finale is just incredible. So much back and forth and really dynamic gameplay that's happening because there's a final 2 and it can happen. But I think it's so good to watch how everything play out until the end. It's so good.
But also, even though it is that 5 picking off the 4, even during those 4, even during that, you see the minority at that point. You see the ruthlessness there because I believe it's Rob just throws everyone at you see how it's man eating man, and it's even though it's strategically it's very simple, you see the fact of okay, these people are now being I'm going to do whatever I need to do, and I love that element as well, even though I don't like that Rob, but it's fine.
All right, shout out to Sean Rector, my favorite male contestant ever.
He needs to be brought back for 50.
A powerful force, just so dynamic, and man, he kept it so real, so entertaining. I can go on and on. He's my favorite man.
He needs to be brought back for 50 with how much the community wants him to come back.
Just to go back quickly to Australia, Gabe agrees with you, Josh.
Yes, thank you, Gabe. It really is.
It's hurting me right now. The season so near and dear is at 4th, but there's only 4. So I just want to see where it ends up.
It won't stay that low. It won't stay that low. Especially where we're about to go next. Yeah, we're about to go next.
All right, we're going to take a trip to Thailand for Survivor Thailand. I think one of the coolest logos. I like the Thailand logo. I really do.
And it's a shame that is the peak.
I will say about Thailand that the logo, the intro credits, some of the challenges, lots of the aesthetic stuff is really good and really interesting. They have some of the best peripherals.
Yes. The Lotus Challenge.
Yeah. Some really interesting stuff. The final immunity challenge where they're holding the coins between their fingers. Xi'an's great. Gandia's great. I personally enjoyed Rob Zabachnik. Not everybody does. I personally enjoyed him.
I will say, I agree. Well, I was just going to say Brian Heidick beats Clay Jordan, who we've also lost in a 4-3 vote. Look, this is not a popular season with the Survivor community. I will show some comments. Anthony, Gabe adds in production prop design was great. Sifu is in the chat. I could be biased, but season 45 is up there. And I will say, Sifu, we're doing 10 seasons at a time. You got to come back when we talk about 45, my man. We might need to get you on when we talk about 45. I'll say that. Mark adds in hashtag bring back Gandia, which Gandia, thanks to David, who used to be a Survivor podcaster, has been on Survivor now. I did enjoy Rob. I know some people didn't. Gandia is an icon. I even like Jed, and we didn't see much from Jed. I'm looking at everyone, just reminding myself. Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of people return from this season, and there's a reason.
We've seen
that.
One. Yeah, we've seen Cheyenne.
Who's the one? Who was the one person who returned?
Xi'an. She came back for All Stars, and that was it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I will give it. I liked the fake out merge. We can give that a little bit of credit. I'm glad that you've already put it. Honestly.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad you already put it because we like.
I knew instantly where that was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only is it really boring, it's really ugly. There's some really nasty stuff there that was really not handled well, the Ted and Gandia stuff, how that was talked about by. There's just a lot when it's not boring. When it's not boring, it's it's ugly.
I'm not going to name him, but there's also one of the worst people to ever, if not the worst person ever to play Survivor on this season.
Which one? There's a few of them.
Yeah, there are a few that are pretty shady, but yeah, it's just there's not really a whole lot, and it's like the show as a whole, there's so much there that just feels like, is this even a Survivor season? Like, what are we doing here? It's like kind of like for any Marvel fans out there, it's kind of like the 2008 like Incredible Hulk, like how they like it's like technically part of the canon, but really it's not. Like this is like the most like non-canon Survivor season. It's not.
We just don't talk about it. This is the one time on Survivor Now that we'll mention it. Sifu adds in on a lighter note. I'm down. Love this breakdown. Keep it rocking. I can give some insight on the things that weren't shown. Take care. That sounds like he might be joining us on when we cover that season.
I feel like if we ever do a 45 rewatch.
Ooh, yes.
I got Bruce and Sifu in there.
Brilliant. I love that. Let's go on to season 5, Survivor, the Amazon. Now, gentlemen, let me just say, when I was first getting into Survivor and I was looking at all the seasons, this one stuck out to me. I could, like, as soon as I saw the logo, as soon as I thought about like what going to the Amazon rainforest, I was like, this is going to be perfect. This is what Survivor should be. I think the Amazon is like the perfect location to send people out there. And sorry, Anthony added in a comment. Am I the only one who notices that this is the first cast pick that's blurry? Oh, is the last
one? We want to blur it out from our
sometimes I just couldn't find a very good picture. But yeah. So this was the season that Jenna Maraska beats Matt 6-1. It was the first dominating vote. Obviously, we got Rob Cesternino from this season. We got the iconic peanut butter situation between Heidi and Jenna, where the guys were all standing on the poles, and it's Jeff, get the ladies some peanut butter. And Jeff did. We had Christy this season, which was the first deaf castaway to ever compete on the show. I thought that was really cool. Obviously, there was a rivalry between her and, was it Jenna? Who was? No, it was
Christy and Jenna and Heidi. But
there was that rivalry going on. They split them up, guys against girls. The guys thought they were going to roll over the women, and that did not happen as the women beat them at that first challenge, sending Ryan home. You had this like very masculine alliance going on during this season, like especially with like Ryan, Daniel, you could throw Roger in there, Dave. Like there was this we're men, we are stronger than women. And I think it's very iconic that a woman comes out beating a man at the end of the season. It's very storybook ending in that sense. So what did you guys think before I give my like last kind of feelings about this season?
So when I joined the fandom, and like a lot of the discourse around past seasons was that Amazon was like a top 2 or 3 season, like consensus around, the late 2000s was that Amazon was like amazing because of the strategy elements. This was the first time we saw really dynamic and fluid strategy that Rob Cesternino like engineered and like changed the game in a lot of ways. And he was inspired by, the underdogs in Marquesas, like flipping over the majority. And I think we just saw some really, really fun and interesting and dynamic strategy all the way through. That makes a really good season. The gender commentary was a sign of the times. That was reality TV in 2003. Shannon Gus from RHAP, she pointed out that this is fun and nostalgic in the same way that like Friends is. And that like, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't age super well, but it like that's what stuff was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of really fun stuff there. I think, in the around Cambodia, when they're talking about like, voting blocks and shifting dynamics and everything's different all the time. It's like, well, we kind of already had that in Amazon and Pearl Islands. Like those 2 seasons had some really fluid, ever shifting gameplay where like, like Dina was on top, she gets voted off. Alex is behind that vote, he gets voted off. Christy was in on the Alex vote, then she gets voted off. And then Heidi was in on the Christy vote. Like everyone, it's like a constantly like toppling thing.
And then there's Butch. He's in there.
Yeah, and then Butch is there too. I personally really wish that Rob C had won because he was just behind so much of that. I think that Jenna is a really unique winner that like we talked about with the women ranking winners podcast, like she has a unique place. But I do think this is like, despite some of the cringy gender commentary stuff, it is like a really, really, really good season.
Agreed. I mean, Gabe said it best here, needed a fun season after Thailand. Sorry to dog on Thailand so much. But yeah, I really enjoyed the dynamics. Like I loved Dina. Obviously, I loved Jenna and Heidi. I was going to ask the question, is anyone going to take their clothes off for peanut butter in this podcast? Like Rob Sestronino, like, as we've said, he kind of he kind of changed the game and changed how you viewed Survivor as a player. Yeah. Matthew was there and present and accounted for.
He had some fun moments.
Yeah.
Nothing from all. I mean,
it's okay. We don't. This has been going on for. We don't need to spend.
I don't think it should go above Borneo. And I would argue I still prefer Australian Outback, but I'm interested to see. Like, I was a little let down with this season. It's a good season, I agree. And I think it's going to end up in the grand scheme of things in that kind of middle road when we rank all these seasons together. And Australia is probably going to be very close to it. I just enjoy some of the relationships. And I know this might not make sense to you guys. Yeah, I enjoy some of the relationships more on Australia, and I enjoyed the atmosphere a little bit more on Australia as well. Jenna's not my favorite winner, as you guys know, as we spoke about. So I would prefer Tina in that sense as well. I'm okay putting this behind Australian Outback if you guys feel like it should go behind. That's kind of the range that I'm at right now, is like anywhere in that like 3, 4, or 5 range. Like I think Africa's better than the Amazon. As much as excited as I was to have a Survivor season in the Amazon, it didn't quite live up to the hype that I thought it would.
I personally, for these first 6 seasons, I would put Amazon at number 2 because of how fun and lively and dynamic the gameplay was all the way through. And there was like some really fun, like, I don't know. We're always like, oh, bring back villains, bring back messy Survivor. Like this was messy, you know.
It was.
It had that of the old school seasons, but it had like new school level like dynamic gameplay. Like the gameplay was so far ahead of its time. I would put it. I personally would put it number 2 behind Marquesas.
Gabe says Randy obsessed with keeping Australia high. I am. It's tough. I'm not gonna sit here and spend 20 minutes like fighting for it, but it's tough. It's breaking my heart each and every time. Ollie, what are we thinking?
Oh God, I don't know. I was kind of fine wherever it went. I was not like there wasn't like a hill I'd die on for it. I think Josh made some good points. So I think to compromise, I'd maybe say like 3
behind Africa in front of Borneo.
Yeah.
Josh, any argument?
I can live with that. I definitely think it's better than Africa, but I can live with
I'm also trying to appease.
Like I said, we can always go back. This list can be adjusted like off air. If we adjust anything off air, say we text about it and next week we come and we've changed it up, we will let you guys know. We will be like, we decided to put Amazon in front of. So like maybe I'll do some research and maybe like we can put it in front of Africa. Right now it's going 3rd, but for sake of time, let's go ahead and keep on moving to. That's not right.
No, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
Pearl Islands, yeah.
No, okay.
The background's right, not the cast picture.
Oh, yeah, no, Pearl Islands is right. I'm missing one, and I'm missing the background right now. So, like, as we talk, I'm going to get on my phone and add a background. I was looking ahead, and we're missing All-Stars when we get to All-Stars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Yeah, that's terrible. But Pearl Islands, I mean, when we talk about seasons with iconic cast, we have to talk about Pearl Islands. Like, I will say it right off the bat. I think Pearl Islands goes straight at number 1. Personally,
I mean,
like, we have Sandra beats Lil 6-1, getting her first win this season. We're introduced to Sandra, Johnny Fairplay, Ruber. I'm just naming the people everyone knows. Savage is on this season, but there's also some other like Tiana's on this season. Tawana. He knew
Krista, Burton.
Like,
like
Brian O'Pree.
Lil was even enjoyable. Liv was enjoyable as well. Like I'll just say she was.
Let's not forget about robbed first boot Queen Nicole. Like even Nicole I loved.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's in the chat saying like Pearl Islands has everything. Pearl Islands is a masterpiece. Like, and I think it's true. It's like Pearl Islands probably is the earliest season when people are like, what season should I go and watch? Like, if I have to go watch back a season, what season should I go watch? Pearl Islands is mentioned a lot. We had some, I think even like the first kind of like challenge was like iconic in the sense of you have to go to a town and barter, and Rupert steals all the shoes. You've got,
and then the shopkeeper falls in love with Trish, and trying to kind of like sell her
be
off.
Like, okay, take her. Like, like it's like I even think back to just the Sandra and Fairplay's dynamic, because I'm not even going to call it love-hated dynamic.
The dead grandma this season.
I can get
dead
loud
grandma.
Too, what the F? Yes.
Exactly, like throwing the fish, and because she was hating on Fairplay so much, and no one
Where's
was
that
there.
snake?
Is this the season where Rupert? Forgive me. Is this season or All Stars where Rupert they have to build a shelter and he digs it in
That's
the
All
sand?
Stars. That's All
Oh,
Stars.
okay. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I will say I love that you brought up Rupert stealing the shoes, or at that like first challenge, because was it Rupert who stole them?
Yes.
Yeah. Like that was so cool, and I love that it fit the pirate theme. That's what I really miss about the themes.
Yeah.
Like I'm not someone who hates Survivor just because they're going 41, 42, 43, et cetera. Now, like I'm not even too mad that they're not moving locations. I'm a little upset, but what I miss is like when a season fits the theme. Like all the challenges had something to do with like pirates. There was a challenge where they're on a ship. They're racing each other on a pirate ship.
And one where they're shooting a musket too. Like that was like one of the challenges that Daryl won. That
was so cool to me. And that's what sticks out about Pearl Islands is just the overall, like, if you guys can't tell, something that I really enjoy is when a season has an amazing aesthetic to it. And like, I really enjoyed the pirate theme this season. Sandra obviously winning. We knew that was going to happen. You had that rivalry between Sandra and Fairplay where they got pretty heated. Obviously we spoke about the dead grandma thing. Like I even like that challenge where it was like walk the plank. You're watching your loved one. Yes, that I didn't even see the comment before saying that. I think this season should go number one. Like this is the type of season. Honestly, it's one of the seasons that if you're giving certain seasons that people should start on, this is one of the ones that you might throw out there as like, hey, watch Pearl Islands. This is an easy rewatch. Like I could go back and rewatch it right now.
It's almost like someone mentioned that earlier. Sorry.
No, I would go out there. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's not even that controversial to take. I think Pearl Islands is the best season of Survivor ever. And like that is like that is my big thing. It is like Mark said in the comments earlier, like everything plays out to perfection. Like it is as close to a perfect season of Survivor as we will ever get. Like everything was perfect. Like the Outcast twist, a lot of people hate on it, like, oh, it's not fair when voted out people come back in the game. Correct. I agree with you. It's not fair. You shouldn't, most of the time you shouldn't do it. 99 times out of 100, it does not work out as perfectly as it did here. Like Burton coming back is like the alpha villain kind of person, and then Lil coming back and like maybe she was voted back in because people didn't want to go on the pre-jury trip with her, but she like was such a driving force in the post-merge. Like the fact that this like scoutmaster from Ohio who's like may or may not be going through menopause like as the season goes on, like is like the driving force behind all of these votes. And like in the end, like John, who's like, Mario Lands on the Funny 115 wrote a whole piece on this and how like incredible it was that John, the ultimate like villain in Survivor, still I think probably the biggest villain we've ever seen, like meets his match and gets owned by Lil of all people. Like, are you kidding me? And then Sandra wins, who like it's incredible. Everything is perfect. Everyone is like the best possible iteration of their archetype. Rupert is someone who I have a lot of complicated feelings on because I think that he's just like way one note and overdone. But even
hey,
in this
he's from
season,
Indiana. Don't hate on my fellow Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but in this season, he's like perfect for it. He like adds so much to the like he needed to like be that larger than life presence that failed, and then so much that and then his boots catalyzed so much more stuff. I think he didn't really add anything to the show beyond this season, but I think that in this season he like was so good. And Sandra is amazing, one of my favorite players of all time. She's so fun. It's perfect. Everything about it is perfect.
Yeah.
So I mean, I might have accidentally already put it first. I did.
I was gonna say you didn't.
I meant to add Amazon, and thank you, Mark, for saying. Or no, it was Anthony. Anthony adds in, where's Amazon in the rankings? Thank you, because I meant to add Amazon and I added Pearl Islands instead, and I felt like that was the direction we were going because Josh just said he thinks it's the best Survivor season of all time.
Yeah.
You never asked my opinion. I was going to put it last. Okay.
Ollie, no, you were not. Are you putting it first, Ollie, or do you have different? Yeah, it's going first. Yeah. We'll have a debate later about whether it's the actual best season. This might be a hill, Josh.
I'm ready to fight for it.
Yeah, I knew that was
That's nice.
All right, next up, we are going to Survivor All-Stars. This obviously was iconic because this is the first returning season. So this is everyone seeing people they know. Everyone knows how I stand on the winner. If you don't, I'm not. Amber's like, in my opinion, the worst female winner of all time. I don't think Amber's that good of a player, but we did get that love relationship, which took the world by storm. Whether you like it or not, like this was all over the place because Rob proposed at the finale to Amber. He didn't win the million, but he got the girl. Rupert came back to play back-to-back. Big Tom. I could be here all day mentioning like all the legends we got. This is a messy season. Obviously, the Lex and Boston Rob situation was tough. This is one that I'm higher on than everybody else because everyone's like, oh, let's not talk about All-Stars. It was messy. There are some dark moments. Like obviously you had, was it Jenna leaving early because her mom was sick? And then the Sue situation brings the season down.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who say that just like that. It was a dark season, which is why a lot of people don't like it and don't like looking back on it. But besides the Sue situation, a lot of the stuff that they say make it dark or whatever, is that not what reality TV is supposed to be? Because I found it very entertaining because you had Jerry getting booed off stage at the reunion show. I know I'm not saying that's great, and I hate that happened, but it is television. Like I think it is entertaining. That's my clap back, and I know most people would put it at the very bottom. Or one of those at the very bottom. I still find it very entertaining.
I think I agree with Mark's take there in the comments, who says the season's like super disappointing in the boot order, but it has a surprising amount of rewatch value. Like there's a lot of like iconic moments and things that come from this. And like I've watched this season several times. Like I got the DVD when I was a kid and I watched it before I watched most of the seasons before it. So there's a lot of nostalgia for this one for me. But yeah, it is like it is kind of ugly in some parts. And the post merge is like a little bit of a slog. Like I appreciate the Rob and Amber story for what it is. And I like them both to a certain extent. But it is like the steamroll down to the end. It's interesting, but I don't know if I would describe it as fun. Or even like that, like good of a season. And I don't know. I mean, Rupert and Big Tom, like I feel like they were just kind of like that. They were just kind of there, you know. Like Alicia too was just kind of there. Like Jenna Lewis like came out of the gate real hot, and I think she has some fun moments down the stretch. But really, she's not like a huge presence. The highlights of this season for me were Ethan and Jerry for sure. I think that they were both added a lot to their character and were like really interesting and dynamic, but then left right before the merge, you know. So
I love the fact that Gabe's read my mind there
about the Cheyenne immunity.
Yeah, like literally, I was like, when I think about All Stars, I think about Cheyenne winning immunity because that's one of my favorite challenges.
Yeah,
that was my favorite moment.
That was a great moment.
Even though I was arguing to put it high, is this finally the moment on the podcast that we can put it below Australian Outback?
I think I would probably put it below Outback, above Thailand. Yeah,
we won.
There's a lot of it's a very complex season. Yeah, but I don't know if I'd describe it as good.
Yes.
I will.
I feel like the jury. I think that's what spoils it for me.
It's so ugly. Oh man, like Lex and Tom and Alicia, so ugly.
And again, Kelly Goldsmith was right.
And she was right. She was right.
So I'll put it there in a second. I'll update the rankings. I do want to show this comment from Wild West. I'm sorry. I'll take Amber over Erica from 41 any day.
Watch our video where we break all that down.
Yeah, go check out our
Randy and Wild will be fighting.
Gabe says you gotta win, Randy. I never get a win. I'm so happy. No, I'm kidding. All right, next up we are going to Vanuatu, however you want to say, Island of Fire. Another badass logo. Like I really like this. Is cool. Again, this season we had. Wasn't this another one we had? Men versus women.
Yep.
It started out. I kind of liked it because we got that like iconic intro with the chief and the tribe where they all maroon and they immediately like surround them, and it's kind of like a wake up call for the castaways, being like, "Holy cow, what is going on here?" Let me get my little stats up so I can have it. This is where Chris Daughtry beats Twyla 5-2 at the finale. I mean, Scout was on this season. Where the Scout stands, Eliza was on this season.
In the chat is a Scout stan. I know that.
I love, this is one of my most underrated Survivor players ever, Amy Cusack.
Oh, yeah.
Love her.
I love her too.
I wish we saw her more. Like, honestly, absolutely loved her. I'm just looking at everyone else who was on this season. I'm looking.
We had Jeff Probst's we had
his love interest.
Yeah, we had Jeff Probst's love interest in Julie Berry.
Yes. Oh, is that who? Oh,
yeah, it's on the far right. Yeah, no, this season. I think this might be the most underrated season.
I think it's up there for
it's so good. And it's like it is peak like messy old school Survivor that we love. Like the women's tribe before the swap was everything. There was no duds there. Like the first episode where it's like, oh yeah, the older women and the younger women, and then you got like Dolly being like flip-floppy, and then Lisa who's like in her 40s but trying to like hang with the younger girls, and then Eliza voting out Dolly because she doesn't feel like she wants to put her trust in her hands. Like just from the jump, it's like, wow, these women have everything. The men's tribe was a little bit more. I think Rory's hilarious, and I think Chris's story is great, and there's a couple other like interesting
I also
people
enjoyed
there,
Bubba. Like, can I
I mean, there's like there wasn't like entirely bad, but I do think the women like really carry this season. It's really, really fun. I think like the post swap is really fun. Watching like, the genders like interact for the first time, and the early merge is like a little bit rough, but like the Leanne blindside was incredible. One for the ages. And then the season from there is just like popping off, like firing at all cylinders all the way through the end. Chris has a great underdog story. I think, and again, so many like iconic fights and quotes and voting confessionals and just like camp moments. Like I love this season.
Same. I mean, I just want to bring up Mark's comment shouting out Twyla. Like just even Twyla, like going back, because this is actually one of the seasons I rewatched last year when I was getting my partner into Survivor more and being like, we're binging. Because I remember liking Vanuatu, and I was like, right, you've got to watch this just to get the opinions. And I agreed, it is one of the most underrated seasons. Like just the drama, the characters. Love Amy. Amy is one of my favorites. I could watch Amy play anything.
Oh, she's amazing.
Same.
Amazing.
I personally, I would put Vanuatu as number 3. That's just my opinion.
I was thinking
that is after Marquesas and above Africa.
Yeah,
that's where I would put it too. Actually, that's where I would put it too.
All right. Hold on, I'll update it. There's no argument. It wasn't this season also, by the way, for everyone out there who's like, Randy's just not arguing whatsoever. There's seasons I will argue on. There are. I don't find it better than Australian Outback. Personally, I would choose Australian Outback, but that's going to be the ongoing joke this series.
I do think Outback is probably like a top. These are like higher quality seasons than like a lot of what the rest of it has. So even though Outback is what, number like 7 or whatever right now,
it'll be 7.
Like a top half-ish season.
Yeah.
Overall. So. Yeah,
Randy, don't worry. There's a few seasons coming up that is definitely going down, so don't worry.
But yeah, last thing I'll say on this before we get to the final season, doesn't this season have that massive like final 5 challenge where, or am I mixing it up with Thailand? It's either this or Thailand. They have
it like the giant.
It's the giant. They have to like climb up into. Yes,
that was the final 4, but yes, they do have that.
Yeah. Okay, so final 4. It's the right season. Like I thought when I saw that, I was like, this is what a finale, challenge should be. It's grand. It's amazing. So we'll place it in 3rd. But it's time for our last season. We are going to Palau. This is a season that I will fight on. I've watched Palau, I think at 3 or I'm contradicting myself because I said Australia is the only season that I've watched 3 times. I'm wrong because I've definitely seen Palau like 3.5 times. And I say 3.5 because I kept starting it for whatever reason. When I was doing my rewatch, I kept starting Palau and I would get halfway through and then something else would start and I'd get out of watching it. So I've watched this pre-merge of Palau literally 6 or 7 times. I'm not even joking. For whatever reason, I just always ended it. Obviously, we got Tom Westman beating Katie Gallagher at that final tribal council 6-1. You had the relationship with Tom and Ian this season. You had Ian catching a shark. Was it? I believe it was Ian. But it was Tom. Tom caught a shark. We have lost a few castaways from this season, way too soon. Jen obviously passed away. Angie passed away. Willard's elimination kills me every time I watch it because it was just that twist of like, hey, both tribes have to go to tribal council. And I mean, everybody knows that. Remind me of the name of the tribe.
Karor. Or Oolong. Karor was the brown tribe that kept winning. Oolong was the blue tribe.
Oolong, that was the name. Yeah, the Oolong tribe obviously was getting decimated. I'm sure Josh is going to bring up Stephanie LaGrossa, who he loves. Bobby John's on this. That tribe gets decimated. And I know most people are like, well, who cares about Willard? I think it's heartbreaking because that tribe was never going to lose if that twist didn't happen. And it was kind of a situation of like Willard knew he was the weakest and kind of just accepted his fate. Like he was on, it's not the best move. I get it. But he was just kind of like, I know where the votes are going. And he still was like super bright around camp. There's some good moments on this one. Josh, take it away. I mean, I feel very strong about this season.
I am also very high on this season. I think that there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's so boring. It's like, a double pagonging essentially because Oolong gets wiped out and then the Tom, Ian, Katie group kind of just like wipes everyone else out. So strategically, I will say it is pretty straightforward. And if you're watching for like shifting, power flips and like dramatic blindsides and everything, there's not a ton of that. But I do think that the character development of the whole season and watching like the human experience of all of it play out, it's fascinating and really good, really great. Some really, really great casting choices. Just a really interesting story overall. Like, I think part of why Steph is one of my all-time favorites is like, I love a good underdog, but I think that I'm so glad it was her, right? Like it could have been like Bobby John or Ibrahim as the last one, and it probably wouldn't have been as compelling, but Steph was just so raw and real and just put it all out there for us to like feel with her. And we did, I think it was like really cool to see her just kind of run things on that tribe all the way down to being the final one left. And just like, she was the first person ever to be on Survivor as a tribe of, living completely on her own, so like, people go to Exile Island and, they cry and stuff. And, we just kind of like bat an eye to it. But Steph was the first one to just like be out there by herself. and yeah, just trying to like watch her survive against Karor when she makes it, and like she's excited to make new friends and try to get things going. But yeah, even after she goes, I think it's really, really compelling. Like final 6 with the Greg blindside and final 5 with the whole like blow up between like Ian and Katie, and watching them like spill their hearts out to each other, and the finale too with like Ian's like whole fall with his fall from grace.
Part,
and then, there's so much really, really good stuff there. I love Katie Gallagher too. I love Tom, love Ian, and love Jen Lyon, RIP. But like, I also really, really love Katie Gallagher. I think that she was a really dynamic presence that like drove a whole lot too. She was never going to win the season. I don't think she should have won, but I do think that she was a driving force for a lot of the interesting stuff that was happening down the stretch. I love this season. I could keep going.
Ollie looks like he's totally against this season or something. Let me post some of these comments.
Can we put Anthony and Gabe's comments? Because
Mark says, I really love the World War II inspired art direction of this season. It was definitely a unique take on drawing from a location's local history and culture. Obviously, I love when seasons do that. I wish Kobe had more time. He was great. Like I did also enjoy him. Gabe production had a merge buff, but didn't use it after seeing one tribe get destroyed. Let's see. Mark adds in, Karen picking Willard because she knew he was weaker than her is an underrated move.
Yep.
And then Gabe adds in, Tom is a great winner, but his game style only works this way, I feel.
Yeah.
Ian got played hard by Tom and Katie.
Yeah.
And then finally, I'm an unapologetic oh my God, I'm going to say her name wrong. My memory.
I agree. I am an unapologetic Janu stan. Janu is my favorite this season. This is how I feel.
What?
This is how I feel.
This is the perfect way to end the podcast. We still got like 5 minutes here to argue.
So sorry. It's one of those. I don't like Karen. I'm going to say this now. There is a reason that the whole Karen thing became viral, and I feel like she started it. I feel like it's. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Tom. I'm not a fan of Tom. Not a fan of Ian. I feel bad saying it. I think I liked the start where it was like everyone had like a little bit of time to like get to know each other, and then they picked their tribes. I thought that was fun. RIP Jen. That's
the only thing, because this is where I'm at, and this is like the perfect way to end. Like I said, I'm watching the time. We got like 3 to 5 minutes here. I was gonna put it second. That's how I felt. I was okay bringing it down because I despise that opening twist of like, okay, let's vote 2 people out right now. They're done. Now, I did hear what was supposed to happen. This is a little behind the scenes. Those 2 were supposed to return in Guatemala.
Oh, yeah.
Which would have made sense. Oh, that's a cool twist. They got voted off this season and came to come back. But the love for Bobby John and Stephanie LaGrossa were so great that production decided to bring them back instead, is what I heard, for like rating wise.
Yeah, I mean, also like imagine like Jonathan Libby, like, I mean, bringing him back to
and
like
Wanda.
One of the highlights. Yeah, Wanda, I think she was like a little more interesting. But
you're
gonna bring Jonathan Libby back to like captain a tribe and like think that that's gonna be a good season, like probably
just take a moment.
They made the right call. They made the right call.
But can we just take a moment to think that we could have had Wanda coming down the steps of Guatemala singing
and singing something? Yes,
that would have been funny.
That would have been yes.
Okay, shall I just say where I would put the season and let you guys talk? I'd put it 8th.
8th. So that's above what? Just only All Stars in Thailand?
Yeah, it's behind Borneo and Australian Outback.
Oh, that's where I put it.
Okay.
Personally, but
you're making me choose between 2 of my children in Palau and Australian Outback. And you want both of them down at the bottom.
No, Randy, I think if you're putting this second, I think you and I like kind of tip the scales for it to be like a little bit higher. I personally would put it 3rd after Marquesas, ahead of Vanuatu. Actually, since Ollie's so against it, I'll say Vanuatu over Palau. I'll say.
Well, I was going to say
Vanuatu Palau could kind of go either way for me.
The lowest I would go, not to like argue against myself, but I do want to take this list very seriously. I could see the argument for Africa above Palau. I do see an argument for that. I think there's some, personally, I feel like maybe there's a little better gameplay and better competition on Africa. I personally, unless you guys totally outruled me, could not put it below Amazon. But that's kind of the range that I'm in right now.
I think that, it's just hard to, some seasons are like really gameplay forward, and that's the big appeal of them. Palau, I think, is, like I said earlier, like really personality and like character forward. And I think that is a huge appeal of Palau. And I think it's such a compelling story, especially down the stretch as Oolong dwindles down and then as Koror dwindles down. It's like, it's riveting in so many ways, even if the strategy is a little bit more straightforward. So I would personally put it over Africa because I do think it is like a lot more interesting.
I'm okay with that.
And I am fine with it. I'm fine with Vanuatu and Palau. I could go back and forth on them a lot. But yeah, for Ollie's sake, I would say Palau at 4 with the Vanuatu ahead of it.
All right, let me update this list. We're gonna have to. Later on, we're going to have to figure out the right way to do this list thing because I love the idea of it, but it takes a minute to update even with just 10. So let me just update it now so I can go ahead and show you guys where we're at with everything. I'm almost done. It's really just the numbers that I have to update. Josh and Ollie.
I will say, while Randy's doing that, I will say again that while I think this era is like so good, and I would put all of them, even though Amazon is number 6. I think Amazon is probably like a top 15-ish season of Survivor for me. So like all of these, the like those 1 through 6 in this ranking, and maybe Borneo is kind of hard, but like all of these I think are like higher tier Survivor seasons in the grand scheme of things. So even if some of them seem a little lower now, like most of what
Australian Outback at 8.
I was trying to help you out. I was going to
again, a lot of the seasons that come after this are going to go below Outback for me, Randy. Don't worry.
Phil is here. Hi, gents. Digging the ranking. We have to get Phil on this at some point. We absolutely have to. Mark adds in, I'm in almost perfect harmony with this list, but I would have to move Africa down a few spots. Personally, Amazon should be higher than Africa, in my opinion. Otherwise, a good list.
I agree with that.
Gentlemen, I think it's a W. I think we did successful. For the most part, they're saying good list. It's not like everyone.
I feel good about it. And I think it's going to be more interesting the more seasons we add.
Yeah.
But I mean, for these first 10, I feel really good about it.
Yeah.
Here's an icon.
Icon in the chat.
I loved your Palau discussion. If you're just now tuning in.
I love all your work, Steven.
I will say this. If you're just now tuning in, go back and watch this podcast. This was a lot of fun looking back on these seasons with these like quick little reviews. I remind you guys one more time, this list is fluid. It can change.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this at a later date or you've got an opinion, like some of these opinions we saw about, like I would move Africa below Australian Outback. Take those comments, even if you post them here on the live chat. Let us know down below. Ollie, myself, and Josh will read the comments. We'll discuss. We'll see if there's something that we should change around. And then, like I said, if we change anything off air, we'll come back next week and we'll let you know, here are the changes that we made. We'll update you before moving on to the next 10. But gentlemen, that does it for us today. I think a very great start. We ranked these 10 seasons in a way that almost everyone is pleased with it. They have their opinions, but they're like, otherwise it's a good list. This is going to be a 4-week thing. So next week we move back to the normal time that Survivor airs. So if you guys are missing some Survivor coverage, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, we will be here to rank 10 seasons at a time. So next week, we will start with Guatemala. We will end with Heroes versus Villains. I know a lot of people are going to have discussion about what's better, Pearl Islands or Heroes versus Villains. We know on that one. We know where Josh stands. But other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share it. It really helps us get our name out there. This will be on Spotify. So if you're listening on Spotify or watching on Spotify, because you can watch on Spotify now, leave us a rating. We really do appreciate it, especially if it's 5 stars. And check out our website, our brand new website. It's newly designed, survivornowpodcast.com. Don't forget to check us out on our social medias at Survivor Now Podcast. We're on Blue Sky, X, Instagram, TikTok, all of that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow is a shameless plug. It's honestly an awful plug. This is not a good thing to plug. It's my birthday tomorrow, so I'm turning 27. So I'm excited about that. I thought it was Josh's birthday yesterday. I was wrong, but it's the thought that counts. But other than that, I just want to say the only reason I brought that up is I continue to be thankful for all of you. I'm happy to be doing this another year, and join us next Wednesday as we rank 10 more seasons. We'll see you then, guys.